I don't serve people like you." The words hit Ava like a slap. Not whispered, not muttering under breath. Loud. Meant to land. Meant to sting. A moment ago, she was unloading organic groceries onto the conveyor. Milk, avocados, a copy of The Atlantic. Now, everything freezes. The line, her thoughts, the hum of the store fades into a vacuum. "What did you just say?" Ava's voice is low, not because she's unsure, but because she's calculating. Calm, controlled. Linda, the cashier in her 60s, wiry, white, with eyes that dare confrontation, doesn't flinch. "You heard me. I don't serve people who come in here thinking they're better than everyone else." A man 2 carts behind shifts uncomfortably. A young woman pulls out her phone but doesn't raise it yet. Ava doesn't move. "I'm here to buy food, just like everyone else." Linda scoffs. "And yet you walk in here like you own the place, like it's your stage or something." "I walked in here to buy groceries," Ava replied, voice steady. "Not to be humiliated." "You did that all on your own," Linda snaps. That's when a phone clicks on. Then another. And another. The silence is louder than the insult. Aisles seem to narrow. Lights dim in Ava's mind like the spotlight is fixed solely on her. A woman in a tailored blazer pretends to scroll through her phone, but glances nervously at Ava. A father with his daughter looks down, pretending to examine a candy bar display. No one speaks. No one steps forward, except for one soft whisper near the back. "Did she just say that?" Ava steadies her breath. Her spine is iron, but her stomach churns. She's been here before. Not in this exact moment, but in this exact feeling. Exposed, judged, dismissed. She adjusts her coat slightly and says to no one in particular, "Let's see how deep this goes." Linda isn't finished. "Oh, come on," she snaps, hands now on her hips. "You people are always trying to pull something. Intimidate staff, record videos, twist stories for attention." Murmurs rise, audible now. A couple gasps. One man clears his throat, but still, silence in action. Ava's jaw clenches. "You people?" "You know what I mean," Linda says without apology, always making scenes about race, like every inconvenience is some kind of civil rights emergency. "I asked you to do your job," Ava replied sharply. "That's not a scene, that's a request." Linda steps back like she's the one under threat. "I don't feel safe serving you," she says loudly. "I don't know what you'll accuse me of next." "Unsafe?" Ava repeats, blinking once. "Because I stood still?" A customer nearby whispers, "This is getting bad." Linda turns to the growing line, arms raised. "She's trying to trap me. I've worked here 20 years without issues. Don't fall for it." That's when the first camera flash goes off. "I'm not going anywhere," Ava says, finally placing both hands firmly on the edge of the counter. "Ring up my groceries." Her tone doesn't shake. Her stance doesn't budge. Linda glares, but Ava meets her stare without blinking. "You don't get to decide who deserves dignity. Not today." A few heads nod subtly behind her. One woman, older, places a quiet hand on Ava's cart as if to say, "You're not alone." Linda looks at the screen, then back at Ava. "I'm not scared of you," Ava adds. Linda doesn't reply. Her hand hovers over the register but doesn't move. Her chest rises and falls fast. Her eyes shift to the corner of the counter, to the panic button. Phones are up now. Some record openly, others discreetly. A young man whispers, "She's a local author. She was just on the radio." Another, "Is this for real?" Ava doesn't flinch. Neither does Linda. This is a standoff. Not just between two women, but two worlds. One built on silent allowances, the other on hard-earned voice. And somewhere in the crowd that truth hangs. What would I have done? The click is barely audible, but Ava hears it. Security is coming. Linda's smug expression returns. Oh, you can't just walk in here and play victim. Victim? Ava laughs once, dry and sharp. You called for backup because I asked you to scan bananas. The irony burns. Customers shuffle. One man finally says, maybe you should just do your job. Linda ignores him. Ava knows this won't stay inside these walls. Not anymore. But she also knows things just got dangerous. This didn't start today. Ava's voice cuts through the black. Calm, reflective, heavy. This started years ago. Decades. A lifetime of moments just like this one. Too small to make news, too loud to ignore. Silence lingers. Then a slow inhale. So let me tell you how we got here.
My name doesn't mean I'm supposed to be quiet. That's what Ava once told a journalist who asked how she managed to stay calm while dismantling systemic racism on live television. Calm wasn't passive. Calm was deliberate. Ava Reynolds had grown into her voice with intention. Not loud, but firm. Not aggressive, but unshakable. A mother of two, a widow, and a former social worker turned author. She didn't just speak on justice, she lived it. Late nights with aching feet from rallies, early mornings editing essays on healing while packing school lunches. Ava's strength wasn't born from ease, it was molded by struggle. Her writing touched readers because it wasn't performative, it was personal. Her latest book, The Small Cuts That Bleed Us, had become a national conversation piece used in classrooms, reading groups, and yes, even banned in a few districts. But Ava didn't write to be liked. She wrote to be heard. And heard she was. It began in church basements, plastic chairs, bitter coffee, and honest conversations. Ava organized neighborhood circles, not marches. She believed healing started with listening before shouting. Her gentle power drew people in. By the time her TED Talk hit 5 million views, the world called her a racial justice leader. But with the spotlight came pushback, anonymous emails, invitations rescinded without reason, neighbors who stopped waving. A local councilman once smiled at her book launch and later called her divisive on a podcast. Fame had found her. So had resentment. But she stayed rooted because this was never about celebrities. The move to Beverly Hills wasn't indulgence. It was a necessity. Safer schools, better air, more space for her boys. But Ava felt the chill beneath the California sun. The polite stares that lingered too long, the way people greeted her dog before acknowledging her. Once, at a charity brunch, a woman leaned in and asked, "And how did you get your house? Not where, not when. How?" Ava smiled and said, "Hard work and compound interest." They laughed, but the distance remained. In a city lined with Bentleys and Botox, Ava wasn't uncomfortable because of the wealth. It was the invisibility that unsettled her. The grocery store was 5 blocks from home, organic, overpriced, and pretending to be inclusive. Ava knew its layout like a second home, but lately, the air had changed. Employees greeted her with, "Can I help you?" That didn't sound helpful. Eyes followed her down the shampoo aisle. Bags were double-checked like her face triggered suspicion. Then there was Linda, never outright rude, just frosted. The kind of woman who smiled through her teeth and always seemed bothered by Ava's presence. The tension wasn't new, but lately it had grown thick, like something was waiting to snap. And that morning, it did. That same morning, Ava sat in her kitchen, voice warm through the radio as she answered a caller. "Racism," she said, "doesn't always arrive in hate. Sometimes it arrives in hesitation, in assumptions, in silence. The host nodded. "Do you think the average person sees it?" Ava replied. "Not until it's staring them in the face, and even then, some look away." She signed off, tucked her hair behind her ear, and smiled at her youngest, who asked, "Did they like you, Mama?" "I don't know, baby, but they heard me." She grabbed her list and keys. Groceries wouldn't buy themselves. She walked through those doors expecting peace, not battle. She had a podcast playing, her favorite almonds in the cart. Didn't even glance at Linda at first. She was thinking about dinner, about parking validation, about nothing important. And then, "Excuse me, ma'am, but I don't serve people like you."
"Morning, Reggie," Ava said with a gentle nod to the security guard at the entrance. He tipped his cap. "Morning, Miss Reynolds. Looking sharp today." She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. This place never let her guard down. Not really. The floor was polished, the music soft, the produce misted just right. But there was always that quiet tension, like a whisper she couldn't quite catch. It wasn't fear, it was awareness. She adjusted her bag strap. Every movement is intentional. Every step is purposeful. Even here, especially here, respect had to be earned, not assumed. And Ava was always calculating the cost. She turned the corner near the dairy aisle and felt it again. Linda, behind the counter, pretending to arrange coupons but barely blinking. That same cold stare Ava had come to expect. She glanced at the yogurt shelf, acting like she didn't notice. But she did. Linda's gaze wasn't customer service, it was surveillance, cloaked in routine, but unmistakably personal. Ava grabbed a container and moved on, but the tension clung to her like static. Funny how someone could make you feel both visible and invisible at once. No words had been exchanged yet, but the message had already been sent. "Attention shoppers, this is a routine loss prevention check. Please keep your receipts visible during checkout." Ava froze mid-step. Routine? The timing was suspicious. She glanced around. No one else seemed fazed. Just her. She had heard this before, but only when she was shopping. Twice last month, once during a late-night run when the store was nearly empty. She looked down at her cart. Almond milk, whole grain bread, organic apples. Hardly suspicious. But the loudspeaker didn't need accuracy, just an implication, and Ava knew better than to ignore the patterns. Racial profiling didn't shout, it whispered in policy. Ava waited quietly behind the woman in front. Blonde, Lululemon leggings, and a cart full of curated wellness. Linda lit up. "Oh my gosh, Cheryl, I just saw your little girl's ballet video, so talented." Cheryl beamed. "Oh, thank you. She's been practicing like crazy." They laughed, talked Pilates, and exchanged Pinterest recipes. Linda scanned items with ease, offered a reusable bag discount without being asked. Then Cheryl turned, saw Ava, and gave a quick smile before grabbing her bags. The air shifted. Linda's shoulders stiffened, her tone cooled. Same line, same groceries, two very different transactions. Ava stepped forward. Her cart is barely half full. Before a greeting, before scanning, before anything, Linda's voice dropped. "Do you have your EBT card today?" Ava blinked. "Excuse me?" She didn't flinch. "Your government assistance card." The words landed heavy. Not a question, an assumption. Ava inhaled slowly. "I'm paying with my debit card." She shrugged. "Just asking?" But she wasn't. She hadn't asked Cheryl or anyone else Ava had watched check out. Just her. A hush fell over the lane. A man behind her looked up from his phone. A teenage girl nudged her mom. Ava looked Linda in the eye. "You weren't."
Linda scoffed. "Oh, please, you people always act like you own the place." There it was. Not coded, not subtle. Ava felt her stomach tighten, but her face didn't change. "You people?" Linda repeated louder now, always looking for a reason to play the victim. A phone clicked on behind her, someone recording. Ava didn't move, didn't blink. "Say that again?" she asked, voice calm as still water. Linda crossed her arms. "I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking." The recording light blinked red. And just like that, silence turned into an audience. The phones were up now. 2, maybe 3. Linda's arms were still crossed, but her jaw was tight, waiting for Ava to snap. But Ava didn't give her the satisfaction. "I came here to buy groceries, not to be humiliated." Her tone didn't waver, not once. Linda's smirk faltered. "I've got nothing to prove to you, but I'm not leaving without my dignity." She placed her almond milk on the belt and waited. Not for permission, but for accountability.
The officer didn't hesitate. He barely glanced at Ava before stepping between her and Linda. "Ma'am," he said, voice firm, hand on his radio, "you're causing a disturbance. I need you to leave the premises." Ava stared at him, confused. "I'm the one being harassed." He didn't flinch. "The employee has expressed concern. We're asking you to cooperate." Linda folded her arms, smug now. "She's been aggressive from the start, loud, confrontational." "Loud?" Ava repeated. "I haven't raised my voice once." The officer gestured toward the carts. "Let's not escalate this." There it was again. That word, escalate. Always used to shut her down, never the person causing the harm. A man nearby muttered, "Just take it outside." Another customer whispered something into her phone. Recording. Streaming, maybe? Ava looked at the products in her cart, items she needed for her son's school lunch, things she could afford, things she had every right to purchase. "You're asking me to leave because I stood up for myself?" "I'm asking you to de-escalate." She laughed, quietly, bitterly. "No, you're asking me to disappear." But she stayed rooted. Her dignity weighed more than the groceries. Eyes everywhere but mouths closed. Some lifted phones, quietly capturing injustice from safe distances. No words, no support, just digital evidence with no soul behind the screen. A woman nearby leaned into her friend. "I think I saw her here last week. Always looks angry." Her friend didn't respond, just kept filming. Others pretended to be distracted, scanning shelves they weren't interested in, waiting for the drama to pass. The silence screamed louder than the whispers. Ava stood in the center of it all, alone, but surrounded. No one stepped forward. No one challenged the lie unfolding in real time. The weight wasn't in the accusation. It was in the collective permission behind it. This was how it always happened. Not in isolation, but in community. Not by loud hatred, but by quiet compliance. And Ava felt every second of it pressing into her ribs, daring her to shrink. But she didn't move. "She's being dramatic," someone muttered behind her, just loud enough to be heard. Ava turned toward the voice. Middle-aged, clean polo, keys dangling from his belt like truth. She met his eyes. "You think this is a performance?" He shrugged. "I think you're making it worse." "Worse for who?" Her voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the pressure of holding too much. "For us all," he said, "plus us all." Sorry, start again. "For us all," he said, gesturing to the line. Ava's breath caught in her throat. That line, that word, us. She wasn't part of it, not really. "I didn't choose this moment," she said slowly. "It was handed to me, packaged in prejudice and wrapped in silence."
The man looked away, uncomfortable now. Ava glanced around. And you all? You'll go home and tell your families you saw something, but said nothing. She shook her head. No one remembers the quiet ones, but I promise I'll remember you. Ava took one step forward. Her hands weren't shaking, but her voice was. This is racism, plain and simple. The sentence hung in the air, daring someone to challenge it. Linda scoffed. Oh, please. No, I've been watching it since I walked in, accused without reason, judged before I even spoke. That's not policy. That's not procedure. That's prejudice. The room stilled. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten anyone. But because I'm standing my ground, I'm now the problem? I'm the threat? The officer adjusted his stance, less sure now. Ava looked around at the phones still filming. Put this online, she said. Let them see it raw, unedited. Let them witness what everyday racism looks like. She turned back to Linda. You assumed I was poor. You assumed I'd steal. You assumed I'd back down. Linda's face hardened, but said nothing. Ava exhaled. You've mistaken patience for weakness. Someone clapped once, then stopped. But it was enough. A breath in the middle of suffocation, a crack in the wall. And Ava kept speaking. Linda tried again now, voice sharper. You're scaring customers. Ava tilted her head. By existing? By yelling. I haven't yelled once, Ava said. You're uncomfortable because I won't shrink. That's not the same thing as aggression. Linda turned to the officer. You need to remove her, now. The officer hesitated, and in that pause, Ava saw it. The fear of being wrong, the threat of being recorded. They're watching, Ava said quietly. The world's watching. And suddenly it wasn't just about a store. It was about every store, every line, everyone whispered to you people that never made it to a headline. Ava's hands lowered. No more fire, just truth. This is how it happens, she said softer now, quietly, every day. The security guard stepped closer, gently reaching for her cart. She let him take it. You think this moment is new? It's not. It's a Tuesday. It's any day. And that's the tragedy. Linda looked uneasy, like the script had changed and she didn't know her next line. Ava continued, her voice slow and steady. This store will keep running. People will keep shopping. You'll forget my name by sunset. But I'll carry this weight home. I'll have to explain it to my son. The phones were still recording, but the silence had shifted. Now it wasn't apathetic. It was guilty. And Ava's voice, so steady, cut deeper than shouting could ever. A voice rose from the back, calm, deep, unmistakable. That's enough. Heads turned in unison. A figure stepped forward, unbothered, composed. A woman dressed in grace, but holding the weight of 1,000 untold stories in her eyes. Ava blinked. For a moment she thought it wasn't real, but it was. Oprah Winfrey. Linda's mouth opened, then shut. The officer stepped back, uncertain now. Oprah walked slowly, purposely toward Ava. I saw everything, she said. Every word, every assumption, every silence. The room felt smaller. Ava stared at her, breath caught mid-chest. You shouldn't have to explain your humanity, Oprah added. Not in 2025. Not ever. Linda's face turned pale. And suddenly, the balance shifted. Oprah turned toward the officer and spoke with quiet command. I've been in that line the whole time, right behind her. She pointed to Ava's cart. I watched her shop, heard every comment, watched every look. The officer lowered his glaze. She's not the problem, Oprah said firmly. She's the evidence of it. A murmur passed through the room like a wind change. Linda stepped back. The smugness is gone, replaced by something colder. Uncertainty. Oprah placed a hand gently on Ava's arm. You don't have to carry this alone. Ava's lips trembled, but she nodded. And just like that, silence finally stood on the right side. "Where's the owner?" Oprah's voice cut through the air. Steady, deliberate, not loud, but commanding. The kind of voice that makes people move without asking questions. Ava stood frozen beside her, still trembling from the confrontation, her breath shaky. But Oprah didn't waver. She turned to the store manager, who'd arrived late to the chaos, confused and trying not to pick sides. "Get them now," she repeated. "This isn't going away quietly." The manager hesitated, glancing between Oprah and Ava like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. But one look into Oprah's eyes, and he knew. This wasn't just a PR issue. This was a reckoning. "Yes, ma'am, right away." And just like that, the energy shifted. This wasn't a confrontation anymore. It was accountability in motion. Inside the office, the owner sat upright, trying to mask his anxiety. Oprah leaned forward, placing her phone gently on the desk. "I recorded everything." He blinked, unsure how to respond. "I saw the whole interaction, from the moment Ava walked in to the second security showed up like she was dangerous." He opened his mouth to defend the situation, but Oprah held up a hand. "Don't explain, just listen." She recounted it all with surgical precision. No emotion, just facts. Every microaggression, every assumption, every unspoken rule that Ava was expected to follow simply because of the color of her skin. "This isn't about protecting your brand," she said, her voice low. "This is about correcting a culture." The owner looked down, knowing the story would leave this room and that silence would cost far more than taking responsibility. "This wasn't just Linda. It's the system she works within, the one you created or allowed." He swallowed hard. "This happens every day. Same script, different faces." The owner rubbed his temples. "We train our employees. Do you train them to humiliate black women? To assume guilt before greeting?" Ava was calm. Linda wasn't. Oprah's words weren't angry. They were surgical, cutting through every weak defense he attempted to build. "If you're not addressing the culture, then you're sustaining it." He leaned back, silent. The gravity had settled in. This wasn't about a refund or an apology anymore. Oprah wasn't here for damage control. She was here for reform. The pause that followed felt eternal. Then Oprah looked him in the eye and said it plainly. "I'll buy the store." He blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. "What?" "I'll take ownership, full rights, staff included. Let's draft the paperwork today." Ava's jaw dropped. The owner laughed nervously. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. I'm not interested in statements or shallow training programs. I'm interested in dismantling the structure that made what happened to Ava possible." He leaned forward, rattled. I need time to think." "You don't have time, because the video is out, and your silence will say more than your policies have ever have." She stood up, still composed. "You have two options. Sell me the store or explain to America why your cashier is still employed and your protocols haven't changed." The owner didn't respond, but he knew. The tables had turned, and now the whole world was watching. By the time Oprah and Ava left the building, the video had already gone viral. "Justice for Ava" exploded across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Influencers, activists, and everyday people reposted the footage with captions like,
This is what racism looks like in 2025. Clips of Ava's calm resistance and Oprah's offer dominated every feed. Comment sections overflowed with, "I've been there too. Finally, someone stood up. This is why we keep recording." Mainstream news outlets picked it up within hours, and the store's name trended for all the wrong reasons. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a movement. The company's official account posted a brief statement by evening. "We take these allegations seriously. The employee involved has been suspended pending a full investigation." But it wasn't enough. People wanted accountability. They wanted policies changed. They wanted to know how many others had been treated like Ava and walked out in silence. Linda was out, for now. But the public wasn't done, and neither was Oprah. Later, as they sat quietly in Oprah's car, Ava stared ahead, numb, exhausted. Oprah turned to her. "You didn't give her silence," she said gently. Ava's eyes filled. "You stood there and said the truth out loud. Do you know how powerful that is?" Ava wiped a tear. "I was so scared. And still, you spoke." That's how change begins. The world had seen injustice. Now, it would have to answer for it.
"Doors open in 5, Ava said into her earpiece, adjusting the final price sign near the front. She didn't flinch anymore when someone looked twice. Oprah stood beside her, nodding. Today, they see what leadership really looks like. 2 weeks had passed. The store now bore a new name. The staff had changed, policies rewritten, and energy reclaimed. But this moment wasn't about cosmetics. It was about intention. Former employees stood at attention, some nervous, others proud. Shoppers gathered outside, holding cameras, some unsure of what to expect. Ava straightened her badge, Assistant Director of Operations. Oprah leaned in. "Remember this feeling. You earned it." As the automatic doors slid open, the chapter didn't just begin, it announced itself. Right above the entrance, bold letters read, "We stand for equality, dignity, and accountability." Below it, a plaque with a QR code linked to a transparent history of the store's transformation. Customers paused. Some took photos, others just stared. No longer a place of quiet prejudice, this was now a declaration. Visible, unapologetic, and unmissable. The message was clear. Silence wouldn't live here anymore. That same morning, an internal memo went public. Linda's employment had officially ended. No spin, no sugarcoating. The language was direct. Terminated for conduct unbecoming, in violation of anti-discrimination policy. Simultaneously, a corporate-wide initiative launched, mandatory implicit bias training with external oversight. Stores across the country were put on notice. One reporter asked Oprah if this was personal. She replied, "It's not personal. It's purposeful." Justice wasn't just removing one bad actor. It was rebuilding the stage they once thrived on. And for the first time, employees at every level realized discrimination wasn't just risky, it was a liability. Ava stood at the podium, notes in hand, but barely glanced at them. "To those who stood up with me, thank you. To those who stayed quiet, you taught me something too." The crowd hushed. "You taught me that fear protects power, that silence can be louder than hate. But you also showed me that when someone finally speaks, others find their voice too." Applause rippled. This isn't about one person. It's about every time someone was followed in an aisle, ignored at the register, or judged by skin before speech. Her voice didn't shake. It carried. "We're not just checking out groceries here. We're checking systems." The crowd rose, not out of politeness, but recognition. Major networks aired Ava's speech in full that evening. Primetime segments replayed her words. Think pieces titled Ava's Stand spread like wildfire. Hashtags surged again. Hashtag Speak Truth, hashtag Justice Reformed. Talk shows debated what corporate accountability should look like. Schools requested her as a guest speaker. Advocacy groups reached out. For the first time, Ava wasn't just a name in a story. She was the voice of a new standard. And people were listening. Days later, anonymous messages turned into emails. Emails turned into testimonies. 3 former employees came forward with eerily similar experiences involving Linda. One line kept repeating, "I thought it was just me." It wasn't. It never was. Ava read them quietly, one by one, then whispered, "We were all waiting for someone to go first." Now, they weren't waiting anymore. In her final televised interview, Oprah sat across from a seasoned anchor who asked the closing question. "Did you ever expect all this from one moment in a store?" Oprah smiled gently. "Change doesn't always start with speeches. Sometimes it starts at the checkout line." She paused. "But where it starts isn't the point. It's where we take it that matters." The segment faded out, not as a conclusion, but as a beginning. If you were standing where Ava stood, would you have spoken up? Would you have stayed quiet, looked away, or found your voice when it mattered most? Your voice could be the one someone else needs. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your experience might be more powerful than you think. If Ava's story moved you, hit that like button. Let others feel the impact too. We share real stories that challenge injustice and spark conversation. Subscribe now. Join a growing community that refuses to stay silent. Someone you know needs to hear this. Share the story because silence protects injustice, but sharing breaks the cycle.